pas 5 secondași.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Today we'll be talking about social roles and responsibilities of women in climate change. Maybe you already have seen this picture. It's standing with all women and girls at the heart of climate justice. It's a kind of animation used from the United Nations Human Rights Office at the Higher Commissioner in March 2022, in celebrating March 2022 for standing up with women and girls regarding the climate justice. Today we'll be talking about gender, environment, and sustainability. Gender aspects are rarely addressed in climate change policy today. And this topic has not been explored sufficiently, neither at national level as well as the international level. Many people still find it difficult to comprehend the ways in which gender might be a factor in climate change. People don't know yet how it should be politically addressed. Various reasons count for this neglect. Gender aspects in climate change are often not self-evident, and there is little data, research, or case studies clarifying and exemplifying the linkage between gender and education to adapt to the climate change and to prepare for the effects. What are the links between climate change and gender? Actually, are revealed by analyzing gender dimensions as part of the social context and conditions of various human activity fields being affected by or contributing to climate change. The list of dimensions helps to identify the key topics to look at the more details in further stages like social economic dimension, social cultural dimension, legal dimension, political dimension, and psychological and biological dimension. Applying gender mainstreaming is a step-by-step approach based on the principle of equality and equity, non-discrimination, participation, empowerment, and accountability. What are the issues that we need to point out as playing a crucial role on gender and climate change? Women and men in their respective social roles are differentially affected by effects of climate change. Women and men in their respective social roles are differently affected by climate protection and adaptation instruments and measures. Women and men differ with regard to their respective perception of a reaction to climate change. Women's and men's contribution to climate change differ, especially with regard to their respective CO2 emissions. Social roles and responsibilities of women and men lead to different degrees of dependency on the natural environment. As the male perspective is dominating, climate protection and climate adaptation measures often fail to take into account the practical and strategical needs of large parts of the population, like infrastructure or energy supply. The participation of women in decision-making regarding climate policy, mitigation and adoption, and its implementation in instruments and measures are very low. This is a mapping and analyzing of gender in climate change. There is interaction actually because analyzing gender in climate change affects vulnerability, affects on women vulnerability, adaptation to climate change, and innovation and new initiatives. They all interact with each other and gives us the causes that why we are so keen to analyze gender in climate change. What is the situation in Albania? In Albania, the nexus between gender inequality, energy, the environment, and climate change has remained relatively unexplored. In the public perception of modern life in urban centers, women do not walk long hours to collect firewood or fetch water, are only moderately affected by droughts and floods, and cook over smoking stoves only in remote areas. In general, the impact of the energy crisis on women is far subtler and, as a result, less visible. Yet, it is widely acknowledged that current modes of energy governance do have a gendered impact in the countries like the Western Balkans. This impact is primarily felt within household as an increase of expenditures and concomitantly poverty and a drop in the quality of life for those who are traditionally responsible for household chores, women. Dynamics are further exacerbated by limited economic opportunities for women, the low representation of women in decision-making, and low levels of women political participation. However, since these aspects are considered common or traditional, characteristics of in all economies in the Western Balkans, the gender component that is specifically related to energy has remained largely unexplored. Uh, this is just a very short presentation on how the roles and social roles and responsibility of women should be analyzed in climate change. And as I mentioned before, this is very unexplored issue nationally, but also internationally. And that's exactly why in this project we emphasize to give more attention to research on roles and responsibilities of women in climate change. Thank you very much for your attention.